So, pistol versus revolver, topic that has been discussed ad nauseum, and yet here we go again. Guys, welcome to the channel of Modern Survivalist, and as always, if you want to learn more about realistic survival and preparedness, especially given the economic context in which we are in, with a looming horrible recession, tariffs gonna send inflation through the roof and whatnot, surviving the economic collapse based on my experience of going through just that, an economic collapse in Argentina back in the day, that was fun, as well as street survival skills. A ton of information regarding self-defense, practical survival skills without the fear-mongering and doom and gloom. You have those in Amazon following the links below. Guys, you probably know this very well, differences between revolvers and pistols, the advantages and disadvantages of both. In case you're not familiar with, this is maybe the best thing you can have in terms of self-defense. Glock semi-automatic pistol, 9mm, the pistol that is used by anyone that has any common sense and has the option of affording it. If you're looking at armed forces, when UK needed to replace their venerable Browning high powers, they went with the Glock. When the French needed a new pistol for their armed forces, they went with the Glock. When you look at any self-respecting tactical group anywhere in planet Earth, it's going to be in most cases either a Glock or something that looks pretty much exactly like a damn Glock. Why? Well, because it's the best thing you can have. Having said all of that, it requires a certain amount of training so as to reach a level of dexterity and fine motor skills are compromised in high-stress situations. That's why the muscle memory is so important. And the only way to reach that level is by training and practicing a lot. Most people don't do that, and yet they are just fine with a little bit of luck. Now, if you're not the kind of person that counts on luck and you're objectively analyzing all of this that I'm talking about, you will probably realize that your best bet is in fact a revolver. Why? Well, because even though it is mechanically more complex and delicate in many aspects, the manual of arms, meaning what you need so as to have this thing go boom, is a lot more simple. You have rounds in the cylinder, and that's all it takes. You pull the trigger, it fires. 6 rounds, pretty reliable. It is not more rough or it is not more tough or durable than a semi-automatic pistol. It's simply that the manual of arms is more simple and less involved in what you need to do so as to have the gun work. There's no empty chamber, there's no safety. Glocks don't have safeties, but many pistols do, not manual external safeties. Glocks have 3 safeties, 2 of them internal, 1 itself on the trigger itself. You don't even need to think about it, but still, you have a chamber that needs to have a round in it, you have a magazine. And this brings me to the advantage that the revolver has, the pros and cons of the revolver that I'd like to talk about in this video. You have something that's very simple, something that I recommend all over the years, and I know that some people, well, if you're not serious, then you shouldn't have anything. You're a dumbass. If you honestly think that way, you're stupid and you need to stop talking. There's a lot of people out there that are just different. Men, women, older women, young men and women that are simply maybe not as interested in firearms as you and I am. And that person does have a right to defend themselves. I recommend going with a revolver, giving that even if they don't have much training, just the minimal so as to safely handle the gun, keeping it pointing in a safe direction, understanding how it basically works, and not much more than that. If they are scared and they have this knee-jerk reaction of, the muscle twitch that is very naturally going to occur in a high-stress situation of extreme fear, you're going to pull the trigger, it's going to fire, and you have 5 more rounds to go. In this case, it's a beautiful Manouran French 357 Magnum revolver that costs around $3,000. It is maybe one of the more, well, let's forget about the maybe. It is the finest revolver ever made, which is pretty cool. But it doesn't matter if it's something else, if it's a Ruger, Smith & Wesson. The way in which you handle a revolver has those advantages. Here, you need someone that will remember to have a round in the chamber. You need someone that needs, there you go. It's not working well because your magazine is not properly seated. That's why you're about to get killed. No, you need to have a round in the chamber. That's why you're getting shot at and your gun is not firing. All of those things, which seem extremely simple, you're not going to forget about those things in a revolver, as long as it's loaded, of course, which is the way in which you should keep it anyway. Someone is on top of you because you're using this as a last resort. Someone is trying to literally kill you, and someone is pressing. It's not firing because it's out of battery. It needs to be like that, right? Out of battery, doesn't fire. Battery, fires. In the revolver, you can press as much as you can on the barrel. It's not going to affect it. Now, someone holding it here, which is a technique that I explained into survival skills how to grab this if someone is trying to use it against you. There's techniques, different ways of grabbing one and the other, which will incapacitate that pretty much immediately if you know what you're doing, okay? Now, other than that, pressing this against someone is still gonna fire. Now, in terms of the long-term storage of firearms, there are some advantages here with the revolver as well. We all know that magazines are always the most likely thing to fail in a semi-automatic pistol. Whenever there's a pistol of any kind, if there's something not working with that thing, it's probably the magazine. Most cases, getting a new magazine, especially in the olden days of 1911s and high powers and whatnot, the magazine was always the issue. Problems with feeding, problems with ejecting, problem with this and that, most likely try a new magazine. The magazine is always a weak point, and people these days that are familiar with firearms to a certain degree understand that maybe the Glock magazine is one of the most reliable magazines there is. This is not a Glock magazine, this is a Magpul, is it? Yeah, Magpul. Still okay, but yeah, Glock magazines, original ones, are the best ones you can have. That does not change the fact that as simple as a magazine is, which is basically a box with a spring, this spring being under tension could be the potential point of failure, because throughout all of that extension of metal, every little segment needs to work so as to keep that pressure going. Now, anyone that knows a certain amount, anyone that has a certain amount of firearms knowledge knows that these days, especially these days, modern magazines are ultra reliable. You can leave a Glock magazine fully loaded for 10 years, most likely it will work without an issue at all. The key word though is most likely, because failures can still occur with everything, especially if it's something that is under tension for a long period of time. The slightest bit of problem with the material, with the heat treatment, whatever the case is, if there's something that could fail in that thing being under tension for an X amount of years, it's going to happen there. That is not an issue with a revolver. The revolver does not have a spring that is putting pressure on 17 rounds or 15 or whatnot. The revolver is the kind of thing that if you're going to leave it alone in a safe for 50 years, I feel more likely to have less of a problem if I need to use that immediately with a revolver than with a Glock. Now, who leaves a gun that long without using it? You should be training, you should be practicing, you should be checking. Yes to all of that, but the reality says that in survival and preparedness, time flies like you wouldn't believe. Anything that you had, but this has a 5-year expiration date. That was yesterday. Today, it's already expired. Why? Because 5 years just fly by like nothing. Believe it or not, and those of you that have been around for a while know exactly this to be true. Time flies. So that gun that you have in a safe, all of a sudden it's been 5 years, and you're just hoping it works. I'm okay with that, but I'm okay with having more options. And if that's something you're likely to experience, I would even there more suggest going with a revolver. Loaded as it is, there's nothing at that kind of pressure and tension that could potentially have a failure as super reliable as Glock magazines specifically are. When it comes down to reloading this thing, it's one of these things. It is super simple. And again, not under tension while stored. As long as it's clean, as long as there's nothing getting in there, the gun is going to be just fine and it's going to work pretty well. Now, one of the disadvantages of the design of the revolver, besides its more delicate internal mechanism, is this, right? You have your cylinder, you have your rounds, your ammunition is going to go in there. But if this is a gun that you have in a house and you stored it in the closet, in a shelf, wherever it is, and you hide it under a couple of blankets, and then your wife comes and drops a box of old shoes on top of it, and it puts a bunch of pressure here, that could be a problem. Remember, pistols are far more durable and rugged than revolvers, unlike what most people think, this is the Far West revolver. No, these things are far more delicate in their mechanisms than this. If you put a bunch of stuff on top of this, nothing will happen. If you put a bunch of weight on top of a revolver, depending on where that pressure goes, remember that the cylinder is being held in place by this piece right there and this little one. And again, this is maybe the finest revolver ever made. It is tremendously tough and durable, yet the intrinsic weaknesses of a design of a revolver still remain. You don't want to have a lot of pressure here, so careful with that. If your revolver is just being banged around the house and it falls from shelves and this and that and all sorts of things, you have to be careful that this internal mechanism is working correctly, because this is one of the things that could be, if you drive over it with a truck, oh, it's the best revolver ever made. Well, if you step on it or you put a little bit more pressure than you should, there is a chance that you may cause something to fail and not work when you need it the most. And unlike the pistol, there's no quick tap rack bang here. When something goes wrong with a revolver, it's probably something that's gonna stop that from working for a while. You won't fix it right away, okay? So careful with that. As long as you don't mess with it, the revolver loaded is going to be fine 10, 20 years later. I feel a little bit more comfortable 10, 12 years later than with a loaded semi-automatic pistol. That's just me. I get it that if this is what I'm going to have ready to defend myself, at least I want to shoot it a couple times a year, change the magazine, change the ammunition, things that make perfect sense. But again, we are all different, and there's going to be someone out there that will have a gun, they will not use it for a decade until someone breaks into their house and they remember, oh, I do have that thing, and that's when things can go wrong in terms of training, in terms of your ability to handle that weapon when it's needed the most, and the intrinsic pros and cons that each one of these systems have. Okay, guys, that's basically it for now. I hope you enjoyed the video. See you next time. Take care.